Yep.
So the way sports is moving right now, and a lot of kids would rather be an influencer than a sports person, they want to see behind the scenes of what's going on, and it helps them get around people as well. And you can do that with teams. You've got 25 characters within a team. There's going to be some characters in there that you're going to fall in love with, and potentially that's how you get support in the team. And
for sure.
I fell in love with individuals more so than teams. Like, I was a Joey Johns fan, so because he played for Newcastle, I support Newcastle.
Yeah.
You bumped into a guy who played for the Green Bay Packers and he said hello to you or whatever, so you support Green Bay.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about the team and team loyalty, it's about trying to tell the stories of individuals. KTR Sports Nation, welcome back to the Body Science Content Studio. As always, our good friends at BFC have just launched a mousse and they are available in Chemist Warehouse as well now. So shout out to Body Science for always looking after the boys, and yeah, they love YKTR Sports. All right, Origin is around the corner, joined as always by Skipper Scope, got Dizzy in the back, and Vintage Jackson. Got the full crew around here doing some micro content as well, so pretty excited about Origin. You excited, Scope?
Not as excited about the cookie butter, BSC. Just quickly on that before we move on, Ice.
What do you got?
I've been treating myself to the cookie butter. It is elite. It's honestly so good.
Skipping out the dessert?
Not exactly. Bit of both. I've been treating myself like, cold weather, trackies, sitting on... That's actually nice, bro.
What's your go-to treat at night?
I love a... what's the one with... why am I having a blank on it?
Must be good.
What's the caramel sauce with the ice cream? What are they? Fuck
McFlurry.
No.
A little Sunday skip.
Not a Sunday. Fuck, this is going to annoy me now. Can't believe I can't think of it.
All right, guys, before we get into this, Steady Freddy, 50% off code, use YKTR for a better fucking world. On the show, we speak about champions a lot and try and pick who comes first, but in the bedroom, champions do not come first. Steady Freddy is a doctor-formulated delay spray that helps you guys last longer in bed, and according to Caleb, it works. Look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Premature ejaculation happens to 1 in 3 guys. There's 6 of us in here, so it's going to be happening for 2 of us. Guys, if you want to use our code for 15% off, YKTR15.
Are you counting Freddie as one of us? Because there's only 5 of us. So Steady Freddie, he must be the 6th person.
Freddie, Origin too, on theme too.
This is Origin Freddie. Freddie's been getting too carried away with selections too, so we'll get to that. Steady Freddie, woo!
All right, Jackson, what's up? 3 of the best. Let's go.
3 of the best. All right, well, obviously we'll start with the Origin team reacts. We kind of haven't got your boys' take on this. So we'll start with New South Wales, roll to Queensland, and I know Scope's got some potential changes he would have liked to have made too. So we'll throw to that. But Ice, we'll start with you. The biggest talking points with New South Wales, obviously Fox and Jakey Turbo missing out, Daniel Tupou and RCG in. What did you make of New South Wales selections? Those 2 in particular.
Did feel for Fox, to be fair. Like, he has been loyal to there, but I think this is a consequence that happens when you go to lesser teams. And it happened to Nick Kotrick, and I'm not putting Nick Kotrick and Adokar in the same conversation, but
it is similar.
It is similar
based off coming
But Fox has proven.
Yeah.
Fox has proven.
That's true.
Premiership winner. He's won Origins. He's a vibe for the camp and stuff as well. I thought he was a little bit unlucky, but in saying that, I do think they make a stand for New South Wales. Like, the options of New South Wales that they have at the moment is probably the most they've had in a long, long time. And basically, Freddie's saying if you're not on form, you can't make it. But then you also have the other side of a conversation of someone like a Tarek Sims who's rolled into there. But they're probably not as stacked in the back row as what they once were. So I think it's dependent on positions. But yeah, I felt like he was hard done by.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the big things in the comments was when we put up that micro, which I'll get to in a little bit with the selection. Micro hits, by the way, just off the back of that. I put up the Sawali Fox discussion. Straight off the bat, I think a lot of people thought that I would have picked Sawali over Fox. I actually thought the Fox was hard done by as well. I would have stayed with the Fox myself personally, but I do love what Freddie's doing with the younger guys, bringing in guys like Sawali, who, in my mind, is Stephen Crichton from 2 years ago. So the series that they lost, they brought in Stephen Crichton.
I don't think this is a Sawali Fox conversation. I think it's a Fox Tupou
for sure.
conversation.
Yeah, and people sort of got caught up in that and maybe thought that I was leaning towards picking Fox over Sawali, but I just the part that I loved and the part that I love that Freddie's been doing is it been blood in these younger guys, bring them into camps. But for me, I would have picked Fox. I would have, if the thing that's probably scared Freddie is the height, obviously, of the wingers, and you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Ice, Cobbo and Oates, whether it would have been Cobbo or Coates and Oates, or it looked like Xavier Coates was always going to get the gig. But I think it's more. Would it have been too late to just put out his best team based on what's performed for him in the past, rather than is he being too proactive, looking at the
form?
Looking at the wingers and thinking, fuck, do we have the size to match them? Do you think he should have just waited, seen what the boys provided, backed the guys that have been there and done a job for him? I know they're missing the centres, but they've got, just say for instance, whether it was he's picked Jack White and Katoni Staggs. For me, I think he's sort of like tried to get on the front foot before something's happened. Whereas I would have backed, even though they're smaller guys in Fox and Brian Toto in height, they've performed at that level for him 100% in the past series. Fox has done it for a number of series now. It's not like I've ever looked back at a series and I feel like maybe Fox and Coates have gone head-to-head, and it's not like it was crazy where it was such a big an advantage where you leave him out.
Yeah, but I think the teams have leveled up a lot. So if you look at the teams from, hey, thanks for the light, Loki. If you look at the teams from top to bottom, like last year, it was glaringly obvious that New South Wales was the way better side. And I think the centre pairings were the really interesting one as well.
Yep.
So if you pair them up from 1 to 17, you look across, a lot of the Queensland guys are probably in a little bit more form. I'm not saying they're necessarily more talented, but most of their squad are in form as well. So maybe that buys into the decision. If he's got a Latrell there,
that's my point.
I think Addo Carr plays.
If you have Trell and Turbo at the centres, do you think Fox gets dropped? I don't think he does.
I don't think he does as well.
I think that's 2 points on that. Like the pick and stick thing was weird for me because I couldn't figure out whether he was picking and sticking or picking on form, because he would take Tupou on form but then take Tarek, who is probably out of form. And then
he hasn't been playing his best of the Dragons, that's fair.
Best footy, so that was a little bit confusing. But the Fox thing, to your point, Cooper Cronk said something about that. He said that you never, when it comes to Origin, you should never be picking a side to try and counteract what the other team are doing. So
that's my point. Is that what he said as well?
A few years ago when they picked Bo Scott at centre, which was just kind of the anti-English call, but they had no points in him, respectfully to Bo Scott.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But so I found it a bit weird as well. I would have picked Fox 100%, but fuck, you can do a lot worse than Daniel Tupou.
So I think it's more to do with that. I think he's been proactive to what he thinks Queensland are going to bombard at him with the kicking game, rather than more so than Fox being out of form at the Bulldogs. Because if you watch Fox, it's not like, the team's been going bad. He hasn't been scoring many tries. He didn't have his best game on the weekend. That didn't help, but I dare say he would have known before that game and been a little bit rattled. He had a couple of bad reads where he come in. But in terms of what he's been able to provide as play, Lukey, you got something for us before? Do you need to roll in? Oh, okay. I thought you were going to add something.
What are you doing?
He actually, watching him as purely as whatever he's been able to produce, he hasn't been that bad, man. So, I think he'll be feeling a little bit hard done by for sure. Apparently, he's taken it pretty well. But the biggest for me, as much as I think the Fox should be there, and this is no bias as well. I played with the guy, Jakey Trbojevic. He just. When it comes to Origin, when it comes to rugby league, you just always want to play with a guy like Jakey. I would have found a position for Jakey.
Where would you put him? Over Regan Campbell-Gillard?
Yeah.
I think Ryan
Madison, over Regan Campbell-Gillard.
Ryan Madison's probably the selection that pushed Jakey out, I'd say.
I like Madder. on the team.
So
we've talked about him as well. So I would have played him because I would have played Jakey over Regan Campbell-Graham because he can play. I think versatility matters a lot in Origin. It's such a physical game. The game can go anywhere it wants, any way. That's why I love Queensland's makeup so much better. I think they got a lot of options on their bench, and in particular Harry, which we'll probably get to more on Monday, Ice. But I'd have Jakey in the team. Even if he wasn't going to be, obviously, you probably wouldn't put Jakey in the starting team based off how well Isaiah Yeo and Cam Murray's gone. Tarek's another big one. I probably would have had Liam Martin over Tarek Sims personally.
You got to look at the evolution. We're talking about this upstairs, the evolutions of the prop as well. So back in even 5-6 years ago, the dream ideal prop was like your Webb Keys, your Matt Scotts, those types of builds are very strong, very straight up and down, can get through a body of work. You're looking at Payne Haas, athletic, Junior Paulo, athletic, Tenafasua Malawi, athletic, Josh Papali, athletic as well. So when you look at these teams, probably only Lindsay Collins and Regan Campbell-Gillard fall into that really traditional style prop. The Clemmer was the man for a bit. They used to always get Napa in there as well to put on big shots. So the evolution of the prop, the game's getting smaller and quicker, and it's kind of just a consequence of it, isn't it? And Jakey, even though he's not athletic, the ability that he has and versatility, playing from prop to 13, he could go out on the edge and do a job out there, was really important. So who knows?
Yeah, I felt sorry for Jakey in particular. I thought Jakey was really hard done by. I know, like, it's not easy. Ice, you've talked about this before with, when there's too many decisions on a menu.
Yeah.
And you end up walking away from the meal thinking, fuck, I picked the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's one of your – I think this is what's happened to Freddie on this occasion. I think he's had so many options. And sometimes, you look at the Queensland team, I think the Queensland team basically picked itself. Yeah, I picked a team that was a little bit different a couple of days ago, but that team 1 to 17, I just fucking love it. There's not one change I'd make from, now a couple of weeks ago when I named my team, Cobbo's been unreal the last 2 weeks. Have him over Hamiso based off the last couple of weeks. I think he'll be up for it. I think the other one that I missed was Jeremiah Nanai, and I thought maybe they were going to go through a bit of a lull. But like I said in the clip that I did yesterday for us, I knew Billy Slater was going to pick players that he knew were going to do a job for him. They might not be the flashiest players, they might not be the most talented, but from 1 to 17, that team's going to have a crack. So I think that team really picked itself, whereas New South Wales, Freddie had that beautiful headache of having probably too many choices. He had a luxury of too many choices. And for me, I think he's missed it. I think it's going to cost him in the end, and I think Queensland are going to win game 1.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the numbers on how many New South Wales players can get picked compared to Queensland. The breakdown over
catchment, like in terms of
And obviously, like New South Wales, they've come out of the period of 10 years of getting oh shit.
headphones gone. Scope Ice plugged his headphones back in. The other, obviously, the big talking point was the centres. So
So
my last,
right?
So, boss is on fire here. Yeah, that was the other thing that I would have had. I would have rather had Crichton start and Whiten on the bench.
Yeah.
Same.
Or
Crichton start,
or Hines on the or Whiten starts and Hines on the bench as cover.
Well, I can tell you
that combination.
Who our centres were 2 weeks ago, if you'd like to know.
Who were they?
You had Staggs and Burton. Which that won me over. I had Whiten and Staggs, just saying. And Scope had Crichton and Staggs.
So this is the thing, like when you talk about form and loyalty, like I know Jack Whiten's been good.
Did Jacko just give himself a rep?
Yeah. But like,
I'm just saying, you always say when Scope was right, I was right.
I think a lot of times
it's not on film. It's not
I got
on film.
talked into
It doesn't
Matt
count.
Burton, so.
No.
I still think Matty Burton would have been a good little pickup.
Yeah, same.
As well.
Matt
Same.
Would you have had Burton over Whiten, like just sitting here right now?
Well, see, that's the one. Sorry, I mentioned at the start of when I started talking about it, and I sort of just got rambled off into so many things because this New South Wales team sort of rattles you a little bit. But do you take this in consideration now? If you're a player, for instance, the big one is Munster, right? Everyone knows Munster's the best 6 in the game at the moment. Well, we think he's the best 6. It's probably a little bit, there'd be people that would argue maybe Jerome or
Munster.
Other guys. Dylan Brown would probably be in the conversation. But when you're looking at negotiating teams, when you look at 2 guys in particular, if Matt Burton and Josh Adokar are at the Melbourne Storm and Penrith respectively this year, and those two teams are firing, Matty Burton's playing obviously centres because he was a left centre for him last year. Do you think Matt Burton is playing centres for New South Wales this year and the Foxes on the wing?
Yeah.
Yep.
So does that come into consideration for players when they look at it when they're off contract? All right. So what comes into it? Do players take less? They might be looking. The prime example was obviously Prez. We haven't spoke to him about it again. We've just got to clarify this stuff. But, whether he's looking at $1 million plus to go to another team or what's reported. What was reported, Jacko? And they said on 360?
750 and they came up to 850.
750, 850 at Melbourne. That's from 360, not from us.
That's enough, eh?
Do you settle on a figure like 750, 850, knowing that you're going to play Origin consistently for the next 3 to 4 years? Then what comes with that? Deals that they get outside of Origin, like when you're an Origin player and that there's an opportunity to get the big deals, the Nike deals, the Fox Sports deals, all these sorts of things that come into it. Do you factor that into a decision now when you're a player in that position, Ice, or do you go, look, I might take? We always put everyone at Redcliffe. Do you go to Redcliffe for 300,000 more, 400,000 more, where you could be in a situation like you're a Titans player?
Yeah, when I look at Cameron Munster's situation, by the time he leaves, he's going to be 28, 29. So in my opinion, I would go to a Redcliffe because you can become a foundation member. Even though he's a part of a great Melbourne Storm dynasty and he'd be in their best team ever, like if you go to Redcliffe, you can almost have a Preston Campbell sort of foundation member vibe about you. Redcliffe's got one of the biggest supporter bases in the comp as well, and they're connected up through business guys as well. So you're going to have those opportunities. They don't have those down at Melbourne. They've just got a great football department. They're lost in the sauce down in AFL. I know he's respected up here in New South Wales and Queensland, but I want to do a little breakdown on what the money would look like over the course of 30 years. Not on this show, but I'll do it later. I would go. When you're looking around that 29, 30, you're starting to have kids looking to have another one. I think it's important, bro.
David Fafita is probably another example of that scope. Like
the early ones are hard.
If he's playing for Brisbane, you'd probably say he's getting picked. So, but he took the money, went to the Titans. It hasn't quite worked. But
and then the other side of that as well, like if he takes the money there, do they have enough money to get a Reynolds or?
No, that's a little bit. I'll say it's different with David because he left the Broncos team that wasn't great anyway. Like it's not like he left a Broncos team that was killing it. He left a team where he was probably in the same position as the Titans. Maybe at the time, the Titans might even been a better prospect. I think, did they sign Tino first?
No, Tino went after.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a little bit different. Like if you're leaving a team like Melbourne and Penrith, which are the pinnacle, I think it just comes down to decisions like those guys make rather than a guy that's floating around the 8.
Roger leaving the Roosters to go to the Wires still wins a Delian. Just sneaking a little Warriors rhetoric.
Yeah, so like you know what I mean. Like so, Roger could be an example, like a hypothetical.
He probably would have won comps
if he had ever played for New South. Just say he was eligible to play for New South Wales. Could Roger have played that good at the Warriors, where he would have been in contention for maybe a wing spot? Because he probably wouldn't have got fullback over Teddy anyway, because they're at the same club. Probably going too far down there. But
sorry.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a bad.
Not a bad thought experiment.
Comparison, yeah.
All right, before we move off New South Wales, Isaac, any changes you would make to this side right now?
You go first, go.
Yeah, so I wrote mine down. So I would have had Fox on the wing over Daniel Tupou, and I love Tupes, by the way. And this is nothing against the players that I'm putting out.
Yeah, congrats to all the boys that have got in.
Yeah, fucking oath. To play Origin, like, you know, I'm a Kiwi. My dream was to play for the Kiwis, but for the boys, this is the pinnacle for them, man. So, you know, just to even be mentioned, obviously, in the 1 to 21 is a great achievement for them. I would have had Crichton at centres if I was going to play Fox on the wing, just for that height factor. Potentially, maybe like a little in-game change. If Fox is or getting bombed, maybe you just switch Crichton out to the wing to combat Xavier Coates or Cobbo, whatever side he may be on. That could have been a little in-game adjustment that I would have made. Therefore, I would have had Jackie White on the bench. I still have Jackie White, and he's been unreal for the Raiders. I think some people have been questioning his selection. If you watch Raiders games, you're a casual. You're a casual if you don't watch the Raiders games and realise fucking how good Jack Whiten is. That I was going to say the C word because I just want to really emphasise how much he gives to that team. So I would have had Jack Whiten in the 14. I would have had Jakey over Regan Campbell-Gillard, and I would have had not a massive change. I would have started Liam Martin over Tarek Sims based on form. Yeah. Those would have been my changes. And then if I was looking at it, like I said, in the Queensland, there's apart from the team that I named, Benny Hunt goes to 9 and Harry Grant off to 14, which after looking at the team, I love it, which we'll probably get to more on the weekend. On Monday when we break down. Mason's going to come in with us as well. Willie Mason's going to come in on Monday and break down.
The big dog.
Yeah, he's actually fucking lived and breathed it, so it'll be good to have his takes on the Origin team. But what about you, Ice? Is any... I love the Queensland team, obviously, as you can tell.
Yeah, I love the Queensland team as well. They've just got like those battling type forwards that they've always had, and they've got class in the halves as well. You look at Jerome Luai and Nathan Clary, who are very flashy. Probably Cameron Munster and Daly Cherry-Evans are probably the only halves pairing that could really battle them in just a pure football sense, unless you can throw a Jerome Hughes in there every now and then. But
what about Hughes and Brown? Fuck, Kiwis would be right. Like,
yeah, and both runners too.
Yeah.
It suits the game. So
cheese at 9. It's going to be a hell of a spine.
I agree with Scope with the Liam Martin rolling in. I think that little serial killer looking vibe I think he'd be in there and he's perfect.
Before we get off this, can I just ask you that question? I know it's a little bit willy-nilly, just throwing off the cuff here. Pick a combination. Cleary, Luai, Ches Munster, Jerome Hughes, Dylan Brown right now. Who would you take?
I'll still go Penrith one because they've got a 93% win rate. And then I'll go in that order and have the two Kiwi boys last. So Nathan Cleary, Jerome, 1, Cameron Munster, Ches, 2.
Is it a good conversation? I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Who would you go? I think it's. I'm sort of leaning Ches and Munster, but maybe I've got a bias on that.
I'm very biased towards that,
yeah.
but if you go off pure numbers, 93% rate over the course of a couple of years.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a bad win rate.
9 out of 10 games you're going to win, so pretty crazy as well.
And what about as good as Jerome Hughes and Dylan Brown? They probably end up third out of that. Fuck.
Right, before we move off Origin, let's go to the Queensland talking points. Obviously, the big ones is Cobbo finally getting his crack, which a lot of people sort of picked. And then, as you sort of alluded to at the start there, Scope, Ben Hunt to start at 9. So Billy Slater's basically confirmed that. He said he's not playing games. He said Hunt will start at 9, Harry will come off the bench, which... I don't know, Billy seems so refreshing. I don't know, he just suits being an Origin coach, man. Already he looks perfect in that role. So Scope, what do you make of those Queensland selections in particular? Cobbo and then Hunt and Harry Grant.
Love it. Like I said, probably the team that I named a couple of weeks ago with Hammersley, you probably just need him playing a little bit more footy, and Cobbo's probably gone on to be the form outside back in the competition in the last 3 weeks. So if he was 50-50 a couple of weeks ago, he just cemented it over the last couple of weeks. He's been unreal for the Broncos. A lot of these other guys probably just picked themselves. Tino and Josh Papali in the middle. The back rows weren't going to be... Ruben Cotter, it's a lock. I had Paddy Carrigan starting with Ruben Cotter off the bench, but I love it. I love, like you said, Billy Slater, refreshing. I think he's going to be one of those coaches like... It's already been talked about. He's not going to last long in Origin. He'll do it. I have a feeling he's going to do a job in Origin pretty quickly. I like them for this series. I really do like them for the series. Pending what I think Latrell could be the big question mark, the big swing player if he's able to come back and play.
I think he need a couple rounds to get going. You know what I mean? He's going to come back here a little bit jet lag, roll back in. It takes him a couple games to get going. I reckon.
So the Origin period goes to 6 weeks. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like Latrell comes back for a decider. That could be the big swing factor for me because I really think his presence is just what he did last year in Origin and what they were lacking with him and Turbo out in the series that they lost at the end of 2020. I think he's the big swing player, but as it sits right now, just say if Latrell and Turbo, we know Turbo's out for the season. If Latrell doesn't come back, I'm picking Queensland to win this series. And from all the good things that I hear about from guys that we know really well, speaking about Billy Slater, the way he's talking about this team, what I think this Queensland team's going to produce. I think Billy Slater will be a head coach in the next couple of years. Yeah,
100%. I agree with you. Yeah, like Scope, I really like the breakdown of this Queensland side as well. I think Ben Hunt, he gets lost a little bit playing for the Dragons because I know they're the Dragons. They're not that exciting to watch, but when he's at Origin, he always steps up. We always like him at 9. I know he's a really good 7.
Hates it.
He hates playing 9, but you play 9 for Queensland.
And the thing is, he hates it and always plays gun. So it's not like before I used to say it and be like, oh, should I be saying that about him? Because fuck, you want people like to watch our show and then think he's not going to have a crack or whatever. Fuck, there's enough performances on film to know that. I
think Ruben Cotter's got an ability to be the sort of next Nate Miles rolling into this next little period. Obviously, you got Tino and Josh Papali'i. They're kind of like the big guys going to get you go forward. But just that one, you can sort of really hang your hat on and do all that dirty work. Nate Miles was always that guy for Queensland. He's not necessarily that big, but when it comes to Origin, he just grew an extra leg and he was attacking everyone's ACLs, third man in. He was the best forward in Origin for good 4 or 5 years, I reckon. In that dominant period, and all the guys will get all the praise: Thurston, Cronk, Lockyer, Cameron Smith, all that, Slater. But he was the guy that really just held that pack together.
Yeah.
And they all led off from probably Tino's probably got the most leadership or natural ability to go towards that. But yeah, I think Ruben Cotter, I'm pumped for him.
Yeah, so am I. Paddy Carrigan as well.
Does he remind you of like a Corey Parker style player? Like he's always spinning and offloading.
Paddy Carrigan?
Yeah,
he's got nice skill, man. Yeah,
Corey Parker's
a good comparison for sure. I think Corey Parker more developed it as he got a little bit older on. He always had that offload. That offload was always silky throughout his career, but it was a little bit more up and down. I think as the positions developed over the last couple of years. The way he links up at the start, I was like, oh, fuck, it's ugly. Like, it didn't look as polished at the start of the year when he was sort of trying to tip onto Payne Haas, and you were thinking, this is at the Broncos level. Sometimes you're just like, Payne, get off the back fence and just, move Paddy out of the way and Paddy get through his carries. But now they're really starting to develop it. I think, obviously, the guy on the other side of the field, Isaiah Yao, is a big part of that. A lot of teams, a lot of coaches will be watching Isaiah Yao, what he does, how he sets up his carries, how he finds a quick play of the ball for his teammates with a little bit of deception, dropping them underneath. Especially in wet conditions, it's really good to get players going sideways. As you know, coaches talk about that a lot. The little drop-off that Paddy Carrigan and Isaiah Yao do.
Do you know what they don't talk about with Isaiah Yao? The body shape of him as well. Because he's still got really strong leg drive, but he's 6'4", 6'5". So the way he can generate like forward momentum besides skill as well, if you do contact him, you have to contact him up high over the ball, and he can still drive his legs. So he's always moving like...
Top 10 in post-contact meters.
Is he? You got that little stat, do you? Yeah, so like... And if you look at all the other 13s, they're all kind of like a little bit shorter, nuggety, strong... you look at Cameron Murray, different types of build. He's probably the only build that's really tall and I wouldn't say lanky. He's not lanky because he's built, but it's a different style of build and it's hard to defend against, and especially when you can strip a ball like he can.
All right. Let's move off from Origin then. Obviously, we will be back on Monday with Mace to talk proper preview stuff, but let's move on to your boy Ice, Christian Welch. He came out with a few changes that he'd like to make to the game, and I know you wanted to sort of run through them. I'll go one by one. We'll roll through them, but we'll start with the first one, which was simply an improvement to the schedule. So he thought it was too heavily skewed towards broadcasters at the moment. He wanted earlier kickoff times like a 4:30 GF and a 7:30 Origin. What did you make of those particular comments?
First of all, big fan of the White Rhino. I think he'll end up potentially running the game one day.
He'll be hand in hand with Clint Newton if he's still there. Clint Newton's doing a great job.
Yeah.
But I could see Christian Welch being a part of that for sure.
Oh yeah, he'd roll into that job easy as. But yeah, like it's a double-edged sword. So the other side of it is like if the boys want more money into the game, you just kind of have to buy into the broadcasting thing. I do like the NFL style of like draw where you have a game Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and everyone plays on the Sunday, and not all games are sort of broadcasted like that. I don't know what that means for money-wise, but I'd kind of roll to. Would you agree with that? Or do you like the double games?
I think because of the amount of money that's put into team like the shows like Red Zone, that would be a little bit different. The broadcasting one is, as much as I agree with him, players, we've all been saying this for 15, 20 years. When the RLPA first come in, I talked about scheduling and, they asked us what our suggestions would be, and that was a big thing that I wrote at the time. Fell on deaf ears, believe it or not. They didn't really care what the skip thought, but
do you know what? It's money talks at the end of the day, especially at that level.
And I realised over time that's never going to change. The broadcasters are always going to put the rugby league games in peak times where they can get the most views and the most times, and that's just one thing you're going to have to live with. That's never going to change.
I feel like the GF is the one that they could wiggle room because you're not going. Whether the GF is on at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., everyone's going to watch it. So I think a 4 p.m. or 4:30 grand final makes sense.
It makes sense to me because on Sundays in Australia, it's always a good time. You look at any of the UFC fights that are on around that time, pubs are packed.
What, the Beachy?
Yeah, the beachy would be packed, but then you got to think that like the grand final is going to be better. You're playing on a drier pitch; it's not as dewy.
Yeah,
but I like the sort of 4:30, 5:30 time slot because
I'd even like it. I love Sunday over footy. It's one thing I wrote down in my breakdown of some of the games this week. The greatest game.
Oh no, it falls on grand final. It falls on what's it called? Daylight savings, eh? It falls on that weekend normally, October.
Wouldn't know.
Well, anyways, it's 4 o'clock. It's still dark enough to have fireworks afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So, and you look at AFL. I think they kick off at like 2 PM or something.
AFL, I believe it's a 4 p.m. kickoff, but build up from 2. So they've already moved that, and that doesn't bow to the broadcasters with regards to it doesn't affect the rest of their schedule. They still have normal 8 p.m., 7:30 p.m. kickoffs, but when it comes to the GF, I think you can absolutely move it.
Oh, 100%. We're more conditioned to like everyone's.
You're going to watch it.
Australia's casual fans of a lot of sports, including the UFC as well. And to have the pub packed at 4 o'clock watching the UFC fight of some random dude, everyone's going to watch the fucking NRL grand final.
All right, let's move on to my favourite suggestion from the White Rhino. He kind of was talking about how the NRL could pay back the Warriors for doing their thing over the COVID period, and he suggested a magic round in New Zealand to open the season, a bit Nines-esque, more of a carnival of football scope. What do you reckon about the New Zealand magic? So it'd be 2 magic rounds a year, essentially. He's not saying take it away from Brisbane. He's just saying round 1 of the NRL in Auckland, Festival of Footy.
I love both. I love, doing it in New Zealand, that's a great reward. Even if it's just for the first year to get some money back into the economy. I know there've been people over in New Zealand have been struggling a little bit with since COVID's come in, and I love Magic Round up in Brisbane. A lot of people have been talking about moving that down to Sydney. I just don't think it would work down here. I've been up there a couple of years. I've seen firsthand the difference over in the UK when they had it at Newcastle, which was just perfectly set up for a carnival like that. It's a carnival for a 3-day, like a festival vibe, and they try to move it to Liverpool, which just didn't have the same effect. I love it up in Brisbane, and I just love this idea. I think it's a great idea, and I think he mentioned as well the Warriors playing all their games at home as well, but I think logistically it wouldn't work, would it?
I don't think that makes sense at all, to be honest.
You'd be filthy if you're one of the single boys in New Zealand.
Yeah, whether you want it if you're the Warriors or not.
Ask the boys; they don't want to play every game at home, man.
Yeah,
no way. Ice Magic Round New Zealand?
Yeah, love it. Especially with the first round. Like, it's a great way to celebrate the game. In New Zealand, they get around that stuff. I don't, like, something like the Nines, you can't have it there for too long because all, like, New Zealand just go, we get it all the time. But something like that, when you get to see all your best players, round one, get to see some rookies and that coming through, it'll be awesome, I think. And I think Eden Park, much like Brizzy, it's a great place because it's close enough to the city. There's enough going around in Kingsland and all that sort of area as well. It's set up for it. Like, we've been in facilities with the Nines. Like, obviously, you're going to have to get changed in those tents and stuff out the back. But I think it's good. I think it'd be mad. Good time in New Zealand around March and that. It's like not too hot, not too cold.
Did you get changed in the tents like Sevens vibes?
For Nines, yeah.
Yeah, there was a few rooms that they had. Like, a lot of teams were next to each other, and they had just say 20 or 30 masseuse, 20 or 30 masseuse lined up next to each other, and you might be jumping on off one of the Warriors players are getting off. Like, fuck, it was good, man. I love the Nines. The first Nines was mad. Like you said, I really think they sort of, with the Nines, they sort of ruined it by going back to back. I reckon they should have just maybe had a gap. Like, the more you tease, the more you give it a break, people will want it even more so. I think doing it back to back years really cost it, but it was a great concept. And I think if they take the round one for a Magic Round, I think that would be a great idea, and the New Zealand community would get around it for sure.
Fucking oath they would.
I still think the clubs ruined the Nines as soon as the teams elected not to take their stars over.
But you would
lost it.
If it was every year, maybe they might change their mind too. If it was like every second year as well.
Imagine roll months around and gets ACL. Like, you can cop it in an NRL game, but like something like Nines where it doesn't really matter.
You can justify it in a preseason game, but a Nines tournament is a little bit.
Yeah, because you don't practice for it too. Like, some teams did a couple of weeks out, especially in the first year. We did zero practice, and it showed. Right, it showed when we played. We got over there. We arrived on the Wednesday. We trained for Nines on a Thursday and then played Friday or whatever. Yeah. And we were average, but we had a good time.
I suppose it doesn't help. It doesn't help set up your season at all, right? You don't take any skills that you've taken from Nines.
No. If anything, it creates bad habits as well.
I think
because you're playing short, you're backing off rather than keeping to your normal defensive structures. But like if you, like I said, take it every second year. I think people, especially young kids coming through, they love it.
It put a spotlight on guys like Cody Ramsey.
Yeah, perfect for that.
Tabuai Fido.
Yeah, so you get young guys. If it's every 2 years, so like just after I did it, like a guy like Ches and Foz were in the first ones for us, and probably playing Ches and that in the first one was a good idea. But whether they want to go back to the second or third one, like, and it's worth the risk for the clubs, probably not worth it.
But we love that Magic Round one.
Yep, love it.
Also, what he said was, Ice, we've been talking about this for fucking years. I think a proper broadcaster investment, something like this would be awesome. He wants an NRL version of Drive to Survive or Hard Knocks, basically following either the wooden spoon incumbent or if they go back to back, the next worst team every year.
Yep. Love it. So this is how I kind of got into, like, I'm not big into American sports, but if you ask me what my second favorite sport is, I'd say basketball. Yeah. NBA finals are right now. I haven't even watched a game, but I like to see everything in and around it. And there was a Drive to Survive. I actually didn't know what it was. I watched it this year, but the stats on it have been crazy. So they've added actually 73 million fans in 2001.
just from the Netflix series. The valuation has gone from 8 billion to 13 billion. And the most interesting thing about this series is only 20% of the show is built around the racing. So my core philosophy in YKTR Sports is back in the day wasn't always just to connect fan to player, but it was to storytell the things behind the scenes. So if you look at Tiger Town, great. Hard Knocks is one of the greatest series ever. I think we need something like that every year.
Yep.
And there's basic rules around Hard Knocks, say, like, do they have to be outside the 8 or... What was the rule? They can't go back to back.
No, yeah. So they haven't played in the playoffs, and obviously the team that hasn't been done within the last 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it'd be easily done for the NRL. So for example, it would have been the Bulldogs last year that you would have seen. How that would have been sick to see Fox, Burton, Tavita, Gus. Like
the reason they normally pick the team that's finished last two is because they get the number one pick. So there's a lot of intrigue with the rookie that's coming in. Generally, most times. It's a quarterback as well, so a quarterback that's killed at a collegiate level.
The Browns with Baker was sick that year.
But look at us. We're someone that's benefited off documenting the journey behind the scenes, and it's not always about selling clothes. People want to intrigued about characters and storylines. And if you look at the way TV's evolved over time, we're from TV shows to reality TV. You look at the Kardashians, they're one of the biggest things just from documenting the journey.
Yep.
So the way sports is moving right now, and a lot of kids would rather be an influencer than a sports person. They want to see behind the scenes of what's going on, and it helps them get around people as well. And you can do that with teams. You've got 25 characters within a team. There's going to be some characters in there that you're going to fall in love with, and potentially that's how you get support in the team. And
for sure.
I fell in love with individuals more so than teams. Like I was a Joey Johns fan, so because he played for Newcastle, I support Newcastle.
Yeah.
You bumped into a guy who played for the Green Bay Packers and he said hello to you or whatever, so you support Green Bay. Yeah. So it's not so much about the team and team loyalty, it's about trying to tell the stories of individuals, and you'll get way more buy-in. Look at that stat.
I don't reckon that one will be too far away, by the way, as well.
The Hard Knocks?
Yeah, I think they'll be doing.
It's a big investment.
Tiger Town was a tease. I think that's clearly a direction that the game knows they need to move.
Yes, for sure. Building the Titans with Matty Adekponya, that was more Titans based. That was more of an in-house thing that Matty come up with and the Titans. But I think once they seen that, Fox seen that was successful, Tiger Town, I dare say they wouldn't be too far away.
Well, what's the biggest sporting event that's ever happened in Australia?
Olympics?
No, F1 down in Melbourne this year.
Really?
Yep. Most people have rocked up to that. Probably over a certain time. You got to think Olympics over a long period, but it's Australia's biggest sporting event ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck.
So if you think of
based off that
show, it's grown by 5 billion. Like we don't have the global audience for us to grow that, but even if you grow it by 100 million, there's money that's coming into the system, can distribute that out. And if you look at like someone like Kalen Ponga, or if you look at a lot of the guys, they're starting to move towards not only just being athletes, but trying to be business people or documenting the journey on their own as well. When you got a big governing body like that who's got money, they should be plugging that towards them, because that's just the way the world's working.
Yep, I agree.
And Welchie's last point was a bit of a no-brainer, which we all probably saw coming, but he wants a heavier game investment in both the international football and the NRLW, which Scope I know that you froth this year, the old NRLW.
Yeah, well, you can tell the quality of the game has improved out of sight from where it was 12 months ago, so they are going in the right direction with that. International rugby's still struggling. Like, compared to International Rugby League, it's a tough one, man. It's like I've thought about a number of things that they can do to improve it, but at the end of the day, it would come down to the NRL funding the countries to begin with. And what incentive do the players in the NRL have to give to countries from where they are now? I don't know, I get a little bit lost when I start talking about this because there are so many things that run through my head, but I just think we're just never going to get to that level. I think we should maybe concentrate on what we know.
I think you're going to brush the tier 1 nations in all those different tiers as well, because if you look at like the NRL now, there's a big Polynesian influence that's come into the game as well. So if you do want to play for Australia and you get your allegiance but you don't make it, you should be able to go back to your Samoans, your Tongans, your Cook 100%. Islands or anything like that. If you want to grow the international game, you're going to have to lose that ego about that. So if you look at the New Zealand Māori side as well, but potentially I know it's like a little bit like if there was an Indigenous side, a New Zealand Māori side, I know they've done this back in the 2000 World Cup and stuff like that. Like that could grow the game as well. But then you could get the crossover because we just don't have the international.
I think that'd be too hard, especially for New Zealand. Like if you picked a strong Māori side, you're just taken away from an already weakened Kiwi side. Like who would Jerome Hughes play for, or who would Dill Brown play for? I think it could get a bit hard. It'd just be like in my eyes, a New Zealand Māori side playing in the same World Cup as the Kiwis would just be a Kiwis B. I just don't think.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think.
I agree.
Do you reckon
I'd pick New
here's the
Zealand,
question. Here's the
Australia.
question. Do you reckon New Zealand Māori side would be better than the Kiwi side? There's no one really left, is there?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so like the white Kiwis, who's that? Kieran Foran? Kieran Foran, Liam Foran.
Shawnee Johnson?
Shawnee would play.
Shawnee would play. Yeah, it'd be tough.
Yeah, that's
It'd be hard to pick a team.
Retract that.
You know, the biggest detriment to the international game, and I think it's quite obvious, the amount of time that we spent on Origin. The Origin is our pinnacle, and the international game will never get to the heights it needs to be because of Origin, which is, do we just accept that and we just move on? Like, you look at the
AFL,
look at the teams across. So, like, for instance, if Origin wasn't as big, and it's not just about money. Like, these boys who are Islander players or Kiwi players, and this is not like a race thing or anything, Origin is our biggest spectacle. They want to be a part of this game because they've grown up watching it. It's fucking been built up. It gets all this energy towards it. But, like, if you look across the board, like,
the starting props are all
Kalen Ponga would be playing for New Zealand. Is that like, just say if you cut him out and you weren't able to play him. Xavier Coates, PNG, Tino Samoa, Josh Papali'i, Samoa, Felice Kafusi, is he Tongan? Tongan. Jeremiah Nanai, like the boys, like just say if you take the Islander boys out of that and just play for their respective countries, that would obviously boost up the level of international rugby or rugby league, but
detract from Origin.
It would detract from Origin, and I want to see the best players play in Origin. It's not like I'm against these.
Tomalolo play Origin.
Back in the day, I was pissed off as a kid when I grew up. I've said this before. When Carmichael Hunt chose to play Origin, I just didn't understand it as a kid. My dad played for the Kiwis. I was a proud Kiwi, despite the fucking Aussie accent, and moving here when I was 3. Still proud. Like I sort of G up when I get into Origin and do the Queensland fucking day one. I really don't care who wins out of Queensland and New South Wales. To be fair, like I'm always, when New Zealand play Australia, I want New Zealand to win.
That's how you know you're a casual.
But yeah, I'll happily take that. But when when I was a youngster, I just didn't understand it. Dad was, watching Dad do the haka and all those sorts of things, gave me goosebumps. But it's like, as we've got older, I appreciate what what Origin provides, and the international game will never grow because State of Origin is what it is. It's a beast. It's a beast. It's its own unique beast that no other code has got as well.
It's still got room for growth, though. Like, if you look at someone like the Tongan World Cup run that they went on, that was one of the greatest things that's happened in our game.
You want to talk
you never would have said that Tonga would beat Australia ever. They've beat Australia. They beat the Kangaroos. So I still think there's growth there as well, but it's just not going to be like a 16-team World Cup that's going to be super exciting. And not that that's exciting in the Rugby World Cup where you got 4th, but you can generally have... In the next 10 years, you potentially could have a Pacific Islander winner in the competition if they loosened up these laws as well. The Australian law, like the tier ones, if you play for New Zealand or Australia, if you don't get picked for those, if you can go out to Samoa and Tonga, bro, why can't a Tonga win a World Cup? What would that mean? I think they got a national holiday because they beat the Kangaroos over in...
They did, yeah.
That's impact. So... thing with international football, it doesn't always have to be about how much money we can bring in the system compared to something like an Origin. Sometimes it's about the legacy that you can leave back in your home islands. I think that's the way you got to look at it. And I agree with your point. Like, it's never going to be Origin. This is just the pinnacle of what it is. But there's definitely a place for growth there.
I can only talk from a fan's perspective, but I've been to Origin games. I've been to Bledisloe Cups and all that. The best atmosphere for any sporting event. I've been to the America's Cup. The best atmosphere for any sporting event I've ever been to was Tonga versus the Kiwis in that World Cup at Mount Smart. It was off.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was
head, mate.
Yeah,
and they lost and they carried on like they won the World Cup. Like that was the cheese.
Yeah,
the cheese clinic. But yeah, I think.
Were you at the England game?
But
when
that's
they
the
played
thing.
World Cup?
No, I was covering it, but yeah, I wasn't as a fan.
Hurts.
Yeah, tough.
It probably sounds like I'm being a bit negative towards it, but like
it is what it is.
I want it to be like I want Tonga to be a fucking powerhouse because they've got so many good players, and they've got so many good players that are playing in the Origin. Katoni Staggs. Who
you
else
ready
is
for?
Samoans actually than Tongans.
Here's a take scope. Like I felt more proud of playing for the Cook Islands than I did playing for the Kiwis.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And like for me, that just meant a lot more because I grew up in a Cook Island family and our area was like, I felt the Kiwis was just like, fuck, this is mad. I get to play for the Kiwis, get paid, get to take on the Aussie on the Anzac test and all that sort of stuff as well. But I always felt like a little more proud of playing for the Cook Islands. Because we were underdogs too. No one expected us to do anything. And we didn't.
So we know a couple of these guys, Ches, Munster, Nate. What do you reckon? Would you reckon they'd rather play Origin or would they play for Australia? What do you reckon,
Origin.
Bench Morton?
Origin.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems as well.
This is,
and I know players that have played in the past as well, and I won't name any names, but like playing Origin means more to them than chucking on the Australian jersey.
It goes the other
they won't
way,
admit
though.
it. They'll never admit it publicly.
But if you think about that for us, so I just said I'd rather. I was proud of playing for my. It's kind of like playing for their.
I played for New Zealand
culture
Māori.
is
I know
Queensland.
Yeah.
So the Queensland isn't necessarily built off like history of like an islander culture or something like that, but they're proud of the things that they do. They drink 4X. They're probably like easier going blokes. They're proud of the area that they come from.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the way that you drive competition is through like wins and losses. And I know even Queensland pumped them for like 8 years in a row, but that rivalry and that competition builds that competition up to be a lot better than what it is, where historically Kangaroos would pump New Zealand.
The question actually got asked to Freddie Scope during the week, and it could be a conversation in a few weeks. Stags and Daniel Tupou potentially electing to represent Tonga instead of New South Wales for Game 2.
I don't reckon they will.
I think. Do
you reckon Tupou would?
I think Daniel Tupou will. Yeah. In which case, I think you'll see Fox or Swiley
that's a
get
big
back
one.
in. So there's going to be a conversation that's going to come up in the next couple of weeks.
I reckon Daniel Tupou will. I'm not too sure about Katoni. I don't know Katoni
I
on that
think
level.
Katoni will stay in New South Wales because
he's
he
just
wants to
broken
challenge himself.
Daniel Tupou's kind of also been there, done that. He played what 12 and 14 and 2020. I think he was in that series.
One comps.
And it's a little bit different with Katoni as well because Katoni is actually Aboriginal and Tongan, whereas Daniel Tupou's full Tongan.
Yeah.
I believe both his parents are Tongan. So there's probably, like growing up in New South Wales, that's where you're talking about with the Cook Islands, New Zealand thing. I think that's where it'll come into play for a guy like Daniel Tupou. Whereas like Katoni is proper representing his Australian side and his Tongan side. So it'll be a hard decision for him. It'll be a really tough decision.
He was. I don't know Katoni at all, but being around that Tongan camp during that period, he was one of the guys that noticeably was fucking buying in big time to that culture. He was fully invested in what they team.
It's those senior boys. Those senior boys at Tonga have done a really good job of making sure.
Fafita and that.
Yeah. When they started it about 5 or 6 years ago, they didn't just come in there and go. They were thinking long term, and they were blooding younger dudes, speaking, getting in their ear, going, bro, like, come on, you come over to Tonga.
Docs.
Yes. They did a good job of that. So because of guys like Daniel Tupou or Katoni Staggs would have grown up, same thing, watching that final, watching that World Cup.
It's going to be an interesting conversation. All right, before we move on to these, we obviously only have 4 games to preview, but we will be remiss if we didn't touch on Payne Haas ice. Even just overnight, we have more news. So he's now kind of backflipped on the immediate release. His manager has withdrawn the release request. And they said they will readdress it at the end of the year. So
is the All Brothers still looking after him, or is he trying to get rid of those?
Nah, he's with
Coda.
I think he's with Coda now. Coda now.
I don't believe Coda's his manager. I know he's aligned with him.
Yeah, there's always that grey area with Coda. I don't think he's
registered,
but I think they have a lawyer, a solicitor that speaks on behalf of him, I believe.
Yeah, I just thought the timing of it was all like I want Payne Haas to get paid as much fucking money as he deserves over the course of his period as well. I always thought the timing of it was a little bit weird as well. Just like he's been the best player for the Broncos for such a long time, and he's carried them through. And they're just coming out of this other side. They're coming to the other side of it. Plus, he's going to be guaranteed in the Origin spot But like, I'll probably got an unpopular opinion. I think players should have a leg to stand on and voice their opinions, and probably not always do it so publicly as well. But this is the path that he took, and I kind of respect him. I want him to get paid as much as he can.
Well, they would have got to a point. So this is what happens. There's negotiations that happen behind the scenes, and then obviously it hits a stalemate. So what do people do when they're part of bodying groups and they go on strike and that? This is like a version of going on strike. He must have said, at one point, like, let's get this done. When the communication levels probably would have dropped off. It's a tough. It is a tough one because
imagine sitting on the other side of the negotiation table and Payne Haas is just standing there.
He wouldn't even be a part of it.
I reckon he would, bro. I reckon he's that type. I reckon he wouldn't be afraid to go in and negotiate on his own.
I thought it was. I really felt for him in the Broncos game when they were booing him every time he took a carry.
That was sad.
I'm not I can understand it from the Broncos fans as well. It doesn't mean I like it. I felt
maybe first carry, but
first carry. When his name gets called out, booed. But fuck, when you're watching his efforts, they even booed him when he dragged Jaden Campbell into the in-goal line and basically changed the game. That was a massive play. And he was on the front foot carrying players in the Gold Coast Titans 10 to 15 metres, and they were booing him for 15 metres. So I thought that was, I just really felt bad for him.
Do you know what
like
makes me laugh, bro? The old boys at Bronx, they don't give a fuck, eh? They got too much say.
Because they're all mates of Kevy too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So that's what comes
Corey
into
Parker says, I'll just release him straight away.
Yeah, he was the only one saying that. His manager, by the way, is a bloke named Tyron Smith. But there is a Coda NASA influence in there. But
is Tyron Smith looking after Payne Haas now, is he?
Correct.
Oh, that must be new. Oh, fuck, Tyron's a good dude.
Yeah. So it's obviously it's a manage. It's not a Payne decision. That was a manager and club put a bit of public pressure on, sort of thing. I agree with Ice. I just think the timing was just fucked.
Yeah, that's what makes it. This is like
it was the night before a game.
Yeah. Probably would have been even better just to wait for this week where there's Origin, there's a heap more distractions.
Oh, the timing was 100% strategic. So you do it when the most eyeballs are on him, which means right before a game, right before Origin. So it was strategic. I just think the backflip probably suggests that they.
You could tell like he felt it too. Like the comments after. I think that's a big reason why I think they've maybe turned around and come back. I think it actually hurt him. He said all the right things after. A lot like from what he's been saying a lot of the right stuff. He's doing the right. He wants to look after his family. It might for me. I'm telling you, like I don't know, and I've always had my question marks over Kevy Walters as a coach as well. I've been in a situation before where it might not necessarily be the money. I've had teammates that have been in situations where they were offered more money to stay at a club, and they went because they wanted better coaching. Whether that's a part of it, I don't know. I just might add that little
good take.
Add that little 2 cents to it. Like they're going through a good period right now. I've been involved with clubs where winning games has been a detriment to us because our coaches have been extended or given more leniency and given more room based off our performances. And whether that's a factor, whether he feels like he can become the best possible player.
He strikes me as a guy who wants to be that.
That's what I get. I don't know Payne Haas one bit, and I've never spoken to him before. Follows me on Instagram, which I'm grateful for. But apart from that, he's just when I watch Payne Haas and I hear, I'm trying to read between the lines a little bit. Fuck, if he's on 800K, he's going to get maybe a couple hundred more to become a mil player. Yeah, that's nice. He just strikes me as a player that wants to become the best possible front rower in the game. And I don't think it's a money thing. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't think so, because if it's a money thing, but he also wants to win, you'd have a look at the top four sides, right? You would assume
Roosters.
What top four side could pay $1 million for Payne Haas?
Roosters.
Melbourne wouldn't do it, but they're not a top four side.
Yeah, no. So but
they are. They will
be. They will be. They get Brandon Smith and him. They'll be a top four side.
But could they afford? Do you believe the Roosters could afford Payne Haas on $1 million?
I think so, because they're going to lose Takiaho. They're going to probably not. That's why I don't think it's money, bro.
You give them. You give them 800 on the cap, and then you get it the rest through other ways. Nothing dodgy, but. Yeah. I think 800 on the cap for Payne Haas is right about right. I don't want to pay $1 million for.
That's what the Broncos are paying him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what we're saying. We don't think it's about money. We think I'm with Scope. I think it's about coaching, respectfully. I know Kevin Walters is doing a great job right now, but I think we hear enough around the scenes there. Like he says, like some players just want to win. Like if you look at that Tigers situation when they had Mitch Moses, Tedesco, Aaron Woods at his prime. And they were getting coached by maybe Mick Potter or someone at the time.
Yeah, it would have been
Mick Potter, Jason Taylor.
Jason Taylor.
There was a number of them that were around at the time.
And you've got three guys that have come up together, and they're all trying to skip out. There's got to be something in the water there.
Yeah. Well, Luke Brooks was absolutely killing it too.
Yeah, and he would have got paid enough to stay there, and his career shaped the way it is. You look at someone like Mitchell Moses, who's gone to better coaching, probably up there, second best halfback in the game right now. DCE. Top three. Yep. Definitely top four. You look at Tedesco, best player in the world. One of the best players in the world over the past 6 years.
Yeah, I don't.
It wouldn't surprise me. I'm telling you right now, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes to another team on the same amount of money.
Roosters.
If he goes,
Takiaho's out. Jared's getting a little bit older. There's some space there. We'll fit you in under the cap.
Go to the Warriors, man.
I don't want to put him at the Roosters just because of him. He's going to fucking carry on a treat. If they've got Payne Haas and Brendan Smith next year, They're already losing Takiaho. I think Crichton has been talked about where he might not necessarily be re-signing, or I don't know if he's got a year left.
Yeah, didn't he sign for like 800 back in the day? Or
Yeah, he'd be on good money. I just think.
did I call this Payne Haas thing earlier in the year? Do you remember that? You weren't. You played dumb.
No, you did.
Oh, thank you.
I always
grateful.
Don't attack me like that. You tedded me then. You tedded me into that decision, but you did. I always give props where it's due.
Who else?
Now I'm due a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, I said
20.
KP. I said KP as well. So
yeah, you're putting everyone at the Roosters. That's the thing. That's where it gets skewed because you throw that many darts, one of them's going to hit.
Apparently they almost had Cobbo before he took off. Hey, did you hear that, Jan?
No.
So apparently, like Cobbo was done, but then he started to take off, so he's worth more money now.
Imagine if they had Sawali and Cobbo.
We'll be all right. We'll squeeze into the 8.
All right, let's move on to preview time. Ice, we'll start with you. There's only 4 games this week, but the Titans take on the Cowboys first. Taulagi and Hammer have been released to play. Taumalolo is also back for the Cowboys, and Mo Fotuaika comes back in for the Gold Coast. Who you got, man?
I'm with Scope. Last week with the Cowboys game, we were really impressed. Like the scoreline didn't suggest the effort that was put in. I don't think too many teams would be able to turn the Panthers away, and I think this gives them more confidence as well. Titans, head noise of doom. I'll play for the Warriors, and I know what this is like when you're in front and you can feel someone coming back. They've done that twice this year, been up by about 20. I thought they looked really good before the halfback went off. They were flying, bro. So. But now this is part of their identity. They if they get up around 16, 20 points, that little guy in the back of your mind starts thinking, they're like, fuck, we can lose it from here. We can lose it from here. So it's going to be hard for them to shake over time. But I do think the Cowboys get it done. Obviously with the Hammer and that boys coming back. Taumalolo's back. The guy we don't talk about potentially could be one of the best 13s ever. I think Cowboys still get it done easily.
Titans gave up a 20. They were up by about 20 at one point, were they? Around that. Like
22-4,
give or take, 22-4 or whatever. And Cowboys got pumped 22-0. I think there's a lot of positives in both teams. And the positives now that I'm seeing out the Titans' ice is short-term pain for long-term gain. So based on that start that the Titans had, they've had this combination now to start the first 2 games. Brimo missed the first game, but Jaden Campbell at fullback, Brimo at 6, and Toby Sexton at 7. The last 2 or 3 weeks, it's showing in their results for sure. They're so erratic and they're making a lot of errors, and it is going to suck for them right now. This period of 8 weeks is going to be really tough for the Titans, and it could potentially cost the coach. What's his name? Holbrook. It could potentially. It's going to take a lot of nerve for the Titans front office to stick by them. But I just think there's so much positives with that combination. They're just so young, and they're a young combination, and it's just not happening for them for sustained periods because they haven't done it together for a long time. A lot of people have questioned the Fogarty decision to move Fogarty on down to Canberra. Maybe he had a year left on his contract. I think it was good for both. I think Fogarty going down to Canberra, he was okay. We'll get to him a little bit in that game. He had played his first game back. I think he suits Canberra to a T. I think it's going to be great for his career to finish off the back end. And I think these 3 guys, with the addition of a guy like Fozzie, coming there next year to sort of like give him that calming influence. People were saying Fogarty was that for them. And this is respect. I like Fogarty as a player. He's not Kieran Foran. He doesn't have the runs. Fogarty was a late bloomer who sort of, was thrust into the captaincy role the last couple of years because he must just be a really good bloke. He does all the right things at training. But to say that they're replacing a Fogarty with a Foz, I think is wrong. Fozzie has proven it. Won competitions, performed at international level, completely different. The people comparing them to, that's sort of been putting me off a little bit. I think he'll provide a real calming influence because I know what he's like behind the scenes. It'll be sort of like that with the runs on the board, which is the difference. But I also think Fogarty suits going down to the Raiders because he's not really going to be the guy that's going to lose them a game. He's going to make sure that players get around and get Jack White and the ball in the right positions. But my point is the Titans boys, these young players, they're going to be successful players. Whether that's all at the Titans, whether it's a bit of a Tigers, they come through at the same time together. Brooks, Tedesco, Moses, and they're all young guys, and they're having to win games straight away with an inexperienced spine, and it might cost maybe one of them moving on or moving on to different players. Probably Brimo's the more experienced one. He's been around for a little bit longer. But I just think they're all. I just based off that first half before Toby Sexton went down, I think that there's so much there, and there's going to be some pain over the next 5 to 6 weeks. But I really think the Titans should stick with them. They should stick with Holbrook. Let them see out this year. See if they show signs of improvement by the back end of the year, because I just don't think the result's going to come in the next 4 to 5 weeks, and I don't think they're going to get it against the Cowboys on the weekend. That's for sure. So
I feel sorry for Tino, eh?
Yeah.
Bro, he knocked up 170 metres in the first half off 17 carries.
The short kickoff did him dirty.
Yeah.
yeah, fuck. Whose decision was that?
That was Tino's. He came out in the post-match and said, I made that call.
I don't reckon he did. I reckon he's just trying
I reckon
to
he's too good a bloke.
Who would have made it? Osako.
Who kicked it?
Osako.
Nah, sometimes
That's the thing. You look
Just
across
in
that
theory,
side.
in theory, that's the dumbest idea.
Yeah, well, that's what Holbrook said after the game. So Tino was sitting right next to him and said, I made that call.
Nah.
And they asked Holbrook and he goes, dumb call. So, I mean, at least he owns it. I did like that Tino came out and said that, but yeah.
He's just doing the right thing by the boys. I
Tino.
reckon.
Who else would have made it? If it wasn't Tino, if you don't believe that, there's no one else in that team who would have made
Fuck
it.
if Osako's kicking it. I don't know. Sometimes it's not even the guy that's kicking it. Sometimes it might be like a back rower. I'm not even going to pinpoint anyone because it could be anyone.
Or Bullymore put his hand up saying...
Bro, like a lot of people talk sometimes, especially when you've got a young, inexperienced captain. Tino's a gun, obviously, but he's only in his first year as captaincy.
Counterpoint, Tino was also the first man to the ball. So he said he made the call and he was the one
might have been.
chasing
Oh, there
it.
you go.
So
It might have been
was-
Tino.
I think it was
It might have
Tino.
been Tino. All right. Poor kid. There's not many things.
I don't mind it. I don't. It's a
No, I
bad
love it.
decision.
Tino, no,
Yeah,
I'm only kidding.
yeah.
I'm only kidding. No, I still don't like
That's
it.
the first shit call he's made as a captain. So
All right, and just moving on to the Cowboys now, quickly on ices. I think 22-0 against the Penrith. In particular, I think the amount of respect that Penrith had for him, with the way that, if you've watched Penrith over the past, just before the Melbourne Storm game where they put on a bit of a clinic and started getting flowing, they were a little bit willy-nilly in some games because they just knew that they could fuck around for 60 minutes and then put it on the 20. The amount of respect that they had for the Cowboys, they throw it a bit of shape, and that's one of the best parts that I'll speak about Penrith. They have shot for shot with variation on their shape, but there wasn't any fucking willy-nilly offloads. They really knew Cowboys were a team that they couldn't do that to, and they didn't want to give them a sniff. And for Cowboys to defend their line like they did, I give them... Look, 22-0, they got beaten by Penrith, and for me it just shows that Penrith are the pinnacle, and Cowboys obviously are next tier, and I still think they're in the next tier. I give them a chance. I think the score's a little bit closer if they're up in Townsville.
Joey said after that game, even though they got pumped, he said, I've seen enough. I think they can win the comp.
Nah. Oh, I don't know, man.
I can definitely see him in the GF now.
Yeah.
That's what I can say for sure.
It reminds me of that 2017 run that they had where there was no one that was a glaringly superstar. Maybe Michael Morgan.
Michael Morgan had that run of doom. But
Tom Malala was still killing as well. Like, I can see that, but when it comes down to it, I think superstars win game. Maybe they got enough superstars in there. Maybe they got enough people.
I don't think they have any superstars, but they've got a lot
There's
of
heaps of really
solid-
good players.
Yeah.
Heaps of really good players across the board.
Someone compared them to like the 2005 Tigers, and Todd Payton was up
was
there.
the player there, yeah.
Yeah, and if you looked across their team as a whole, like everyone contributed to scorelines.
Who would be their Benji? Drinkwater?
Yeah, drink it.
really.
No, but like don't think of it as just a Benji. Like think of the team as a
Yeah,
whole.
I probably only remember them as Benji.
Yeah,
So,
because we're from New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I think the
We're
comparison
New
is the Tigers played footy from anywhere on the field.
That's the one.
And
That's
they
the
had
right.
shot for shot for shot.
Look
and
at
that's
them
what
first off
Cowboys
the
do.
kickoff. They started spreading it and they got a line break against the best side. And so, and Todd Payton's come from that era. He was part of that team. He's been part of that coaching. So I think you'll build it into him. But yeah, really good side.
Yeah, it's one of the best 22-0s I've ever seen in my life. To go down, to not score a point.
It was a boring game though. Like,
Just because Penrith, they didn't fuck around, man. They got to their kicks. They built pressure. They had a few shots. If it
had
didn't
Origin on mind.
yeah.
Get through.
No, they respected the shit out of the Cowboys, man. Like you could tell in the performance. So I think it says a lot about the Cowboys, and then it also says a lot about the Penrith Panthers. I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. It's them in distant second, but Cowboys are solidifying that tier 2 for me. Tier 2, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I think they fall into the Parramatta, Melbourne Storm, Cowboys, tier 2.
Roosters.
Prediction ice before we move off this game.
Cowboys.
Let's go.
1-12.
Cowboys.
All right, let's move on to the Penny Panthers taking on Simi's Bulldogs. Api Coruscant has been released to play. Kurt Falls, who we were talking a little bit about upstairs, gets his nod at 6 next to O'Sully.
SOS, Sean O'Sully.
Baby, back in the 7 jumper.
100% win rate this year at 7.
Bit of a danger game here for the Panthers scope. Have a look at Origin last year.
Yep.
Talk to me about the Panthers and Bulldogs.
Yeah, this is the game they dropped last year to break the streak against the Tigers, isn't it? Tigers were carrying on a treat too. But yeah, I think it could be something similar. It gives the Bulldogs a chance. We get to see Matty Burton
Fox
and the Fox.
They'll be burning a little bit too.
Yeah, they'll be burning. It'll mean a lot to them. A few of these players, you got a few of their guys, a few players for the Penrith Panthers that are playing their first games, not only as a debut, but for the season. I can see the Dogs sneaking in on this one, yeah. It wouldn't surprise. I don't think it would surprise a lot of people. Bulldogs have basically got their best 17 that they've been able to put out. Who's out?
Dufty was good last week, wasn't he?
Duff played, Duff was back to his best. This is a game where Duff's got to back it up now too, because this is the game where it raised a lot of questions when they played him in the first round.
Yeah.
And he had a really poor game. So he played really well last week. Duff needs to back it up again this week. He's just really good down that right edge. They've got to find a way, the Bulldogs, to make sure that Duff's because Kyle Flanagan, like we said, this has always been my concern with Flano. He's got to manage the game a little bit better, where he's putting Duff in the best positions. Because Duff, we know Duff a little bit. You can see in his body language and the way he plays, he wants the ball down that right edge. And he does. He's capable of having a little fucking hissy fit. Like if he doesn't get his way, playing down there. And Matty Burton's more suited to the left edge. That's where he's done his best work for the Panthers. They've got to find a way to really unlock those guys. Fucking Nath Cleary just playing through the middle, linking up with Burton, second phase, out the back, providing some sort of shape. Just something that they can build on, where they go, fuck, this is working for us consistently. And it's you look at South. It wasn't happening for them straight away at the start of the year, going down that left edge. But fuck, they've been persistent with it, and they've found a way. And they found a way against the Tigers. They just kept on going. Sometimes even at the start of games, it's not happening for them.
Going against Cody Walker in Indigenous round.
Oh, yeah.
Damn my dare. Damn my dare.
Yeah.
I think what scope to that point, is particularly last week, they started to use Matt Duffy a lot, how the Roosters use Teddy on that fourth tackle if they're coming out of their own end, and it sort of just got him in the game a little bit.
Yeah, a good fullbacks do
He's got
that.
a very strong carry through the middle, Duff, when he does get
quick enough play the ball.
Very quick play of the ball, and it just seemed to, I don't know, I'm not a body language expert like you, Skip, but it seemed to...
I love that shit.
It seemed to, just get Duff in the game a little bit, and I think he's underutilised through that middle when it comes to those sort of third, fourth tackles if you just need to get a little...
I don't think he gets himself in the game enough. I know he's a great support player as well.
That's what does get him in the game,
yeah. And the best thing about getting tackled on tackle 4, you don't have to get in the kick chase.
Yeah.
You knew Duff was going to be up for that game no matter what, too, going against the Dragons. That's what gets you in. There's some games, bro, there's some players, like you just know that they're going to turn up on occasion. Playing against I have a feeling Duff's really going to turn up in this one too, because of the backlash that he got off the back of that Panthers game.
I think Addo and Burton turn up for this game as well.
Yep.
I just still think Penrith are classy enough. They'll get around these young boys coming through. A lot of these guys would have debuted around this time as well, like your Dylan Taylor May, Isaac Targo from last year, so they know it's importance of bringing these young guys through. And Panthers players, none of their debutants play bad. They never do.
This Kurt Falls kid is, like, we haven't obviously heard a lot about him, but just on the brief research that I did upstairs, there's big raps on him.
Give us a comparison.
Is he in the mid-range as well? Is he 23, 24 or something?
I'll have a double check, but he's a big body. He's got a nice big left foot on him. He's actually...
Freddie.
He looks, it probably sounds stupid, but he looks very Matty Burton in the way he plays. He plays a lot close to the line. He loves to run, and he's got a nice little left foot in him. So.
Left footers can always kick a ball well.
Is he lefty?
But you look at their starting pack: Moses Leota, Api Coruscant, Fisher Harris, Kikau, Matt Eisenhuth does a job, and Chrissy Smith's a really good back rower. And then their bench is exactly the same; it hasn't changed. So I know the big dogs are out, but I think there's enough there to still beat them at home.
Yeah, that's what I thought last year when they played the Tigers, and the Tigers got them. So I'm just going to go to the Dogs.
I'm going to go to the Dogs too for a bit of a storyline. Skip, why not? All right, game of the week. Manly taking on the Wars. If Manly are looking to get played into form, this could be the game. Shuey is in 5'8", Skip, alongside your boy Fozzie. Also, Jason Saab returns. Marty Tapau's back in. And my boy Carl Lawton is back from suspension. Egan and Seranen in for the Wars. Scope, Bergang versus Warriors.
They're going to turn up for the skip this weekend. It's Old Boys Day, baby. It's Old Day. Look out for the skip, clapping them on when they come onto the field. He's going to be walking around, fucking raising the hat. Looking forward to that. Getting back to, they love the skip at 4 points. So I think the boys.
Obviously, they're going, who's that?
I think the boys really live.
Yo, Peter Hiku.
Is that the guy that used to run on Fozzie?
Oh, fuck. I might chuck a Guernsey on too, walk around. Chuck on the grand final jersey, just so everyone knows.
They get up for that game, though, Manly, eh?
Pardon?
Manly get up for those old boy games?
Yeah, they do. Most teams do. Most players love the occasion when the old boys get up. I think Newcastle started it back in the day and they made a real emphasis of playing really good footy no matter where they were, because they were obviously, they went through a lean period before Kalen and that arrived, and I think no matter what, one of the old boys games they really turned up.
Is that lean period still going?
They always seem to play well against the Warriors as well. It's a tricky game, man. Fuck the Warriors.
Give my boy something, Skip. Come on.
I can't.
There's got to be a
I honestly
lining.
can't.
Wade Egan's back. I think that's really good for them as well. But I don't know. It's up to Shawnee, bro. It is honestly up to Shawnee where he wants to go with this team, or you know what I mean?
I think this is what we talked about.
I love Reece Walsh. He's one of
the big funnest players in the comp to watch, Reece.
I think he's losing, but I think the Warriors are draining him, bro. I think we're losing that fun kid that we had last year, hit the scene.
He looks frustrated, eh?
He does. He looks frustrated. He's, senior players aren't helping him out. There's a few that are missing skip. Adden's a massive loss.
Huge. Lodge gone.
Matty Lodge moves on. Shawnee looks like he's still struggling from his injuries. When I watch Shawnee play, and this is like, I always try to find something constructive that I can say about it, especially when players of his stature aren't playing well. I just think maybe the injuries are starting to take their toll on him because he just looks like he's real hesitant. We talked about the try that he scored against the Dragons a couple of weeks ago. He did everything he could not to score that try. He was that apprehensive, running to the line, dummying, and it just presented itself and he had to score it. And I love Shawnee. Shawnee's fucking one of our New Zealanders' best ever halves.
He's my favourite player of all time, Shawnee.
But he just, those injuries at 30, what would Shawnee be, 30, 31?
Nah, do you know what? I don't think it's so much about injuries. I think he's more so about he's a dad first, and I think that type of thing would take an emotional toll on him. Not always being around his partner and kid, and him being over here as well. And as soon as he gets a chance, he'll take off straight back there. I think you see a different Shawnee Johnson when you get him back at Mount Smart and he's around his family and stuff like that.
Oh, is his family back home in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Are they?
So he
I didn't know that.
The whole time, bro.
He ducked home for, I think he got 4 days at home. Week before last.
Oh fuck, that sucks. I had no idea.
And I know Shawnee enough to like that stuff.
Well, yeah, you just know us at our age. You imagine having what it'd mean like to be having a family at 30, 31 years old. A little bit different for guys that are sort of younger. They're coming through. They're enjoying. Probably might enjoy the odd week.
They push the pram
They
away.
might enjoy the odd week away. But we know the boys that fucking from our mates at Manly over the years when they were younger.
Home,
now Chaz and that, mate, he just fucking loves his family life. He wants to be around his family all the time. When he's 24, 25, you could fucking twist his arm for a fucking beer every now and again. So 100% that's playing a part. I didn't realise that was the case. His family were over there because you can see it a lot again, of the boys. Body language, man. I'm big on body language.
You see me rock up to work when I haven't seen Mallow in a couple of days, eh?
Yeah, rattled. I just look at him sometimes. In goal.
It just doesn't look fun.
Yeah, it doesn't look fun, bro. It doesn't look fun. And that's what I'm talking about with Reece Walsh. It looks like he's starting to lose that and he's starting to lose faith in whether they can put it together.
Hey, house of faith, man. Keep the faith.
When they score a try, you see Reece run over. He's so excited. You can see he's just a kid. Fucking, he's loving his footy, and then something happens and it just drains him.
A shit stat for your cousin there, Scope. Dallin hasn't won a game all year at all. So he's played 8 games. They've lost all 8. He's won 5 of his last 56 games in the NRL.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's not fun. You look at someone like Selwyn Cobbo.
And he has a crack, bro.
He has a proper crack.
Mate, one of my good mates, Braden Williami, had fucking a bad run.
Yeah, there was
bro. He went 0 from 13 from his start. You imagine, obviously Dell's been around long enough. He's had good, successful periods. He captained the Kiwis to a series win at once, maybe 2018. He's been successful. Imagine coming in the NRL and fuck, bro, you lose 10, I lost my first game. I was like, oh, beauty, because I come off the back of the 2009 year. When I come in, we lost to the Tigers, fuck. It's my fault. We suck. But, you got to win the next week, and it's all right. Imagine losing 13 straight to debut. Fuck.
Pumped to see Schuster at 6.
Yes, on wire.
It's going to be a little bit different.
Let's get on to Manly.
Yeah, none of them obviously Cheds takes a big part of the kicking game as well. So I think but there's natural footballers. Tupulotu, I don't think we give him enough.
He's nice.
Georgie Tufua 2.0. He's big body. I really like him as well. Waiting for Kohler just to take off.
Yeah, Sabi back. So Kohler's my big one.
This could be the game, Skip.
I don't think Manly are going to make the 8 this year. I just don't think they're
casual
without Turbo. And Gaz has been unreal. Ruben Garrick has fucking
been good, bro.
Mate, he's been unreal at fullback. But I just think long term, Gaz is probably going to be a winger for us. So to help out the progression of Kohler, who's probably going to go back to the centres, or there has been chat of moving Tommy to the centres to prolong his career. Let's have a look at Kohler.
Where you heard this from?
Just like it's
around the water cooler.
Did NRL 9 or 360, one of them two?
Kenty.
Yeah, it's Kenty. I watched Kenty a couple of weeks ago.
He said at the start of the season, everyone laughed at him, and now he's kind of puffing his chest out like
I did. I watched 360, was it last week, Jacko, and he said it. And I think it's something that they might have to consider moving forward. And then let's see what Tolu Kola. Everyone seems to be pretty excited about him. I've been excited about him since
when you watch him, you just kind of
something's going to happen.
Waiting, You're just half waiting for it.
But obviously, his conditioning's not there. You can see that. He cramps up at the back end of games.
Speed athlete, baby.
He's all fast twitch, man. And those guys, they remind me of NFL, like another guy who we're about to talk about, Xavier Savage.
Maybe you should rock the calf skins, old Kohler, like Savage. Is Savage the only one rocking the calf skins in the comp?
No, there'll be a fair few.
Probably
but those two guys, they look like, and I've talked about it before as well, they look like a product of not being able to play much footy in the lower grades before they've come in with COVID. Like a lot of these comps have been skewed, the 20s, New South Wales Cup. Some of these guys just haven't been able to get the runs on the board in the last couple of years. It's going to come. I reckon bite the bullet, man. Bite the bullet, chuck Kohler at fullback. Let's see what the kid's got. Let him build up some confidence. Whether he plays fullback next year or they rock him back in the centres, it'll help out his ball playing. Because he's going to be part of the team for the next 2 or 3 years. He looks like an elite talent. Big Kamali Olakawatu missing out. Like his name was tossed about a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, the suspension didn't help, and Manly's form over the last 2 or 3 weeks hasn't been that great. I think he'll want to have a big game. He's sort of one of those guys. And then our skipper, Jakey missing out. I think Jakey's going to have a fucking massive game.
He'll be coming out with tears in his eyes, seeing the old boys.
I would
the scope.
Poor fucking Benny Mudders Marcilla through those ribs. All those Jazzy Tavanga, a couple of our favourites. Those boys playing through the middle.
Yeah, who's getting chopped in half?
Boys, make sure you got the fucking
read the tip sheet. Stay away from Jakey.
Get the pads ready for the ribs because Jakey is going to be ripping and tearing this week.
Did you see? You wouldn't have seen it. Did you see Jazzy's interview after the game last week?
Yeah, good. I liked it.
Good,
yeah.
He's we want to talk about boys that are frustrated. He's
fuck yeah.
He's one of the more frustrated guys getting around at the moment.
I love Jazzy's really grown on me.
He's going to be a good little. He's going to be a good little pickup for someone, I reckon. I'm not too sure if he stays there.
I think he
Melbourne
recently. Yeah, he'd kill it down in Melbourne.
Go to Melbourne.
He would
straight
kill it
swap
down
for like a Kenny Bromwich or someone like that.
Or Cheese.
I think he's got a
14.
I think
true. He'd be the perfect 14. They would mould him and put a bit more polish on his ability to play 9 in the pinch, and he'd kill it. He'd be the type of guy that go because he's all effort. Melbourne players, it's as long as you put in the effort, they'll turn you into a player.
You got a spot there,
and he's got a
bit of talent.
He's got talent as well. That's
he's just been getting pumped for 4 or 5 years and trying to fight everyone.
Prediction, Ice.
Manly just purely for Old Boys Day. I think if Waz upset him, wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not too sure if they can string a game together, full weighted together at the moment.
Skip, you're going to be out there, Old Boys Bay. You going Manly?
Yeah, Bird Gang 13 plus, baby.
Plus. All right, let's move on. Last one, Ice. The Bondi Boys are taking on the Canberra Raiders. So Joey Manu, Tokoro's finest, is being named at fullback.
Love it.
Sawali has been released as well back, and Billy Smith gets another crack on the wing. I love me some Billy Smith. Frawley into the halves for Canberra. What do you make of this one, Ice?
Really pumped with how the boys rocked up last week against the Sharkies. I think it was a danger game. Put them to the sword. Got a little bit testy there where the boys got to come back. But I'm actually looking forward to this game.
Rookie in the vet vibes last week. Robbo and Fitzy. Yeah. I think we understated it. We talked a little bit about it. But I think it meant a little bit to Robbo to make sure the boys were firing for him. Yeah.
They were, and Tedesco, obviously freakish, like some of those tries that he done. So shout out to that take he had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he must have been watching the show because
you brought him back into form.
Teddy, literally ever since I said that, bro, he's gone on a fucking tear.
He was still doing the same things in terms of touches, yardages, or whatever. Now it's just polish. Now he's setting up tries. Now he's scoring tries.
Shout out my boy Drew Hutchison as well.
I
think he's got a great strike rate at the 9, and it sort of helps Connor Watson come into his game as well. And obviously waiting for the Chiefs to rock up. But really excited to see Joseph Manu at the back. I think he's really exciting, sort of in the mold of Jordan Rapana style fullback, where they'll pop up everywhere and bounce around. So I think we're still good enough to get it. Easily good enough to get it done without Teddy there. He's still got Sammy Walker. I think Luke Carey played his best game he has all year as well.
Yeah,
so.
Kez and Sammy are firing as a combination of late.
And our pack's still nice. Hargraves, Takiaho, Crichton, Tupanua, Butcher. We'll get it done. Oh, we're down there.
I reckon I out of all the players in the competition, I get a lot of messages about Mudders Hutchinson. I think because I maybe took the mickey out of him a little bit too much, but I actually really like him as a player, as a squad player, mate. It'd be unreal to have a guy like that. He's a steady influence. He gets in at 9. He defends well. Yeah, he's got a surprisingly good engine for a Mudders.
He's one of those guys you can tell Robbo just trusts him. Like
he used to do trust is a big word.
Completely different player. Obviously, Orbo went on to do a million things, but he just always trusted Orbo. That's the sort of vibe you get from Hutchinson.
Yeah,
all right,
he doesn't let you down.
Yep, Ice talked about his Roosters. Let's talk about the Raiders a little bit. Like I said, I mentioned Tolu Kola just before. Xavier Savage.
Waiting for him to burst, eh?
Yeah.
He's there.
One thing I think he's going to be a star. If I was a team that was inquiring about services outside backs, no matter what club, I think because I've just come out of the NFL draft, I'm really big on body shapes and measurables. And when I look at Kola and Savage, I can see speed, fucking big ass, good fucking glutes, center like low to the ground. Yeah. Both got skill. You can see, it can be a little bit better, but it's there. But when I watch Savage, I think the thing that's sort of holding him back a touch at the moment is he looks to be the sort of player in SG Ball or Mats who would just catch the ball and run around everyone. And it's I think it's just gonna take him at least to the end of the season to adjust to an NRL speed where you can't just burn everyone. I think that's just been a luxury that he's had playing through the lower grades. This is not based off anything that I've seen in junior footy. I know people have been highlighting him for a long time. He just strikes me as the type of player who would have played 20s, or if he plays New South Wales Cup, they might create a shape with the typical block shape, and instead of tipping onto the winger, he was just that good. He was just that good where he could just not even pass to the winger, just like burn around the winger that's defending him. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but once that all clicks, I think he's going to be a freak, man. I'm really excited. Like when I watch him play, even when you can tell in his carries as well. He had a point, and they mentioned in the coverage where he lost the ball. I think it was a kick return or an error, and he got the ball and he's carrying it in one hand. That's a product of just being so much better than everyone else at your age, or so much faster that you don't have to worry about ball security. In the NRL, it's a different beast. So he's just got to find that balance of when he can be a little bit flary, when his times are, when he's ready to fucking take off and gas someone and chuck that ball on one hand because he feels more comfortable and he can take off on someone. But
you always talked about Roger having like power through contact when he was speaking. So like Saab's super quick, but like Savage has
it's a different speed, bro.
Yeah.
There's that footy speed or like you see steppers back, and say Shawnee's probably a good example where he'll step to not avoid contact, but you wouldn't be able to touch him and like would celebrate that. But those guys step into contact to get an advantage over the advantage line as well, or the defense line as well.
Short area quickness is what I'd be looking at. If I was fucking in charge of teams, I'd be looking at guys like this who are low center of gravity, built, obviously lower to the ground, and can fucking turn a half break into a break because he's capable of that.
Do you know who was really good at it but didn't have a crazy step? Michael Jennings.
Yeah.
So like you go up and defend him, bro, and you just hear this, like you'd have like 4 or 5 steps in and you're just like, fuck.
And then
it's really loud too. Like who were you talking about the other day?
We were talking about Corabidi.
Oh yeah.
When Lukey went to Leichhardt, sounded like a fucking racehorse coming down the wing.
When we trained at the Kiwis and Roger was there, we done this drill and like we hear him step and the force they can generate through the ground, fuck, it's pretty crazy as well.
You know what made him elite? Hainsey had all that and he was 6'2" and 105 kilos. That's what made him elite. So some of these guys might not have the size, but if you can build enough players that have it, like Hainsey's ability to move in short areas of kick, you think about kick returns where he catches it,
Penrith,
someone's right, the one at Penrith where he catches it, someone's right in his face, and then not only beats people but then strides away for people, like fast people that are chasing him.
You either have one or the other.
I think Lachlan Coote was chasing him, who's quick in his own right.
You either have one or the other, and Hainsey
had them both. But if I'd be looking at guys like this, Xavier Savage, Tolu Kola, I think these guys. Roosters, we said this again, a great take on your Roosters, Ice. 4 weeks ago I said, let's just wait, round 10, 11, 12, Robbo will get it together. He's starting to figure it out. I knew the system. They weren't playing great by no means 4 to 5 weeks ago.
It's very lateral earlier.
They looked a bit clunky. They were going side to side. In particular in the Dragons game, it really stood out. But they're playing a lot more direct. I think Jared's a big part of that. Got to give Jared a rap on, when
he's been good, man.
Sometimes, he scored a couple of meaties too off it, which he's starting to.
Yeah, they get you up, hey.
That gets you up.
Meaties and a sin bin, that's Hargreaves' game.
Yeah, he's good for a fucking on report.
Yeah.
Someone was coming at me in the comments. So I went back at him in the comments. Was it last week? When did they play? They played Penrith last week. Trying to say that wasn't a stiff arm, that it wasn't a coat hanger.
It wasn't.
It was a stiff coat hanger, I said it. I said it wasn't either.
I think the evolution and the good teams have figured it out is attacking from that middle part of the field, where I don't feel like the Roosters are still very much get through your sets, bomb to a corner, grind them out, and then we can strip you apart in good ball. I think they're going to start playing a bit more footy back this part of the field. And you've seen Luke Keary go through that gap and Tedesco wrapped around, they scored in the corner. I think that's where the evolution is for the Roosters in attack.
Just off, like I said before, the Sunday Arvo games. Fuck, I love a Sunday Arvo game when the weather's good. I think we haven't been...
Wraps up the weekend too.
Yeah, you haven't been able to see it properly. I think when they're at grounds like Belmore with all that energy that the Dragons and the Bulldogs had flowing into the game at Canberra, where it started off in really good weather. For Canberra, it got cold. You could see Dill Brown was freezing at the end of the game. But to start off in the first half, Sunday Arvo footy, and this is going to be a Sunday Arvo game down at Canberra again. It's going to be chilly. Egan Butcher's back. My boy Egan Butcher. Watch by the end of the year, bro. He's my guy. I gave you Dominic Young at the start of the year for the Newcastle Knights.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. Yeah. On the show. It's on tape.
Sawali and
take of the year.
Sawali and Savage on a Sunday Arvo is not bad. It's a good way to round out your weekend.
Yeah, and Sawali.
Sawali's, bro, he's going to be so good.
Here's a question before we wrap up. The Sawali, even being in Origin camp these last few days, do you see the remnants of that straight away?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, he's already good, bro. Like, we're still waiting for that massive sort of breakout run, but it's coming. His defensive efforts are crazy. He's freaking the air. His carries are good. I know he's going to be good. Oh, guys, want to hear my early take for Origin player of the series? Who's yours?
Save it for Monday. Let's save it for Monday, should we?
All right, cool.
Breaking it down with Mace.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. Later days.